Hi, everyone. I'm Linda Sheldon-Feld with the International Grief Institute and the creator of Grief Diaries, and this is Moments of Hope, a show featuring people who turn pain into purpose to do great things in the world, and also to have the conversation that America is not having. And before I introduce tonight's guest, Patty Furino, I want to talk for just a moment about a Facebook post that I did this morning. Last night on American Idol, Katy Perry, a judge, a wonderful, wonderful singer, had told a contestant, a 27-year-old widow, to be strong. And the 27-year-old widow, it took all her courage to come on and sing for these judges as an audition. And she sang a song that she wrote called Compass. And it was because her husband had been her compass in life. And it was really, really beautiful. And I know that I had tears in my eyes, as did the judges. But after the audition, Katy Perry told her to be strong. And I really wanted to address that this morning because Katy Perry had her heart in the right place, as most people do. And most people say that because they don't know what else to say. So it really comes from a place of goodness. But staying strong is one of the most inflammatory comments made to people who have lost someone they love. And I know when I lost my daughter, it was one of the comments that stung the most. And the reason being is because basically our ears hear that we need to not cry, not be a wimp, buck up and get over it kind of thing. And even though that's not what people intend, and certainly grief is as unique as a fingerprint, which means that that statement does not inflame everyone, only some. But my belief is that if we don't say anything, then future generations will be no better off. And we live in a grief-phobic society. And so I wrote about this on Facebook this morning, and a lot of people commented. Some people supported me, some people did not. They disagreed. And it's not about who's right or who's wrong. It's really about opening the dialogue. And to everybody who posted a comment, thank you, because you took part in a dialogue that America's afraid to take part in. And that was my purpose. So thank you for joining me on that. I appreciate it. And to Katy Perry fans, of which I am one, I am a pop music girl at heart. I actually really like her. And those who are fans of hers will notice that I used 4 of her lyrics in the post. And so my challenge to you is, can you guess which ones? So tonight's guest is Patty Furino. Patty is a crisis intervention, bereavement support, and education to parents who've experienced the death of a child at Angela's house in Long Island. She is a former Red Cross volunteer, an Angel of Hope coordinator for remembrance ceremonies. And Patty, you're also an interfaith minister, a spiritual guide to people who've lost a loved one. How cool is that? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That is really beautiful. What's that?
I'm thrilled and nervous to be here.
Don't be nervous. This is just an organic conversation that is celebrating all that you bring to the world, because the world needs more hope, more compassion, more kindness, and you represent all 3. So thank you very much. But I want to go back to a pivoted moment. I can't talk tonight. See, there you go. Organic conversation. A pivotal moment in your life. In 1977, when you went in the hospital for ear surgery.
Yes.
What happened?
Okay. I had a disease that had been challenging me for many years. And I went to Glencoe Hospital after the surgery. Back in 1977, they gave you anesthesia and you would create a lot of mucus and phlegm. I was back in my room and I had woken up from after the anesthesia. And my mother was standing right next to me in the bed. And on the other side, at the foot of my bed, was my boyfriend at the time. His name was Ted. And I woke up and I started to look at them. And all of a sudden, I couldn't breathe. I was all the phlegm and the mucus from the anesthesia is, now and afterward, I can explain that. But I was like, I couldn't grab another breath. In that moment, in that moment, the next thing I knew, I was up in the corner. Now, when I say I was, the essence of who I was, there was an awareness of me being up in the corner, looking at my body in the bed. So I'm lying in the bed and I see my mother and I see Ted, and my mother's screaming, she's not breathing, she's not breathing, go get a nurse. And my boyfriend was just kind of standing there, not necessarily knowing what to do, what's happening. And I remember I was watching this from the corner of the room. It wasn't me from my bed. I was watching and looking down. But simultaneously, I'm watching this scene. My mother runs by Ted, pushes him up against the wall to run out. But simultaneously, I'm a part of the essence of my presence is looking down from the corner, but at the same time, I was in pure love and happiness. It was all white light. And that's the only way I can really explain it. Even to this day, I was immersed in love. And what happened was a beautiful woman met me. I went to Catholic school. I was Roman Catholic and I prayed the rosary. I was a very, a good girl. I prayed the rosary every night whenever anything would go on. I loved the religion class. I loved everything about religion. So when this beautiful woman met me, I said, Blessed Mother, you're here. You came for me.
Wow.
And I'm sorry, it's still, I can literally feel going back there. And so I'm understanding what's going on in the room. And this beautiful woman that I responded to, Blessed Mother, you're here. She was a beautiful figure and form of the energy, like seeing through her. And behind her, in a distance, I saw white figures, which it's funny, in the after fact, we call them ghosts, a white form, right? We call them ghosts. But that they were in the background and they all looked familiar to me, and I wanted to go to them. And I it's not like I'm talking to you. My mouth is moving consciously. It's all on a conscious level, from like a thought. The communication to her was like, Blessed Mother, you're here for me. My mother's upset. I want to stay here. Tell her I'm okay. Please tell her I'm okay. And she just looked at me. There was this sense of her love embracing me. She says, no, you can't stay. There's much more you have to do. And with that, the next thing I can tell you, now, remember, your consciousness expands. That's the only way I can explain it in my understanding of it. My consciousness expanded to the point that I could see what was going on in the distance of these white forms of energy, ghosts, other figures maybe I'd known from other lifetimes, and this beautiful woman in front of me, and I'm telling her, I want to stay with you. And she's saying, no, you must go back. And I'm also seeing my mother and the boyfriend and her running out, and I could see a nurse coming in with her head over the body of my body in the bed. When she told me I had to go back, I remember saying no, and the next thing I knew, I was in the bed, and there was a suction tube down my throat, and I was waking up, and I woke up disappointed. I wanted to stay there.
Patty, that just, it's both goosebumps, but also heartbreak. Knowing that intensity of that love and wanting to stay wrapped in it.
Yes.
And, how cool is that? How long do you think it was that you were in the corner? And did you experience emotions?
There was just pure joy because there was so much love engulfing you. And and that's one of the reasons why I went to the seminary, was because of what was left from that experience. I never told anybody. I asked my boyfriend, the boyfriend at the time, afterward.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't tell my mother. I didn't tell any of my siblings. I only asked Ted about that day. I said, I saw that you didn't move. And he says, how'd you know that? You must have been dreaming. Because remember, this is 1977.
Right.
There is nothing spoken about. I'm only, 77. I'm 16 years old. Okay. And
so do you remember why you didn't tell anyone?
Oh, I thinking that I was crazy, thinking that I was making it up. I didn't want any confrontation. I am a people pleaser. I am somebody that wants to, to me, I didn't want to take a chance on people. Oh, that's not true. I was the fourth of 5 children. My family doesn't, I never was in alignment with many of their personalities. We all 5 of us doing things that was just who I was. I was in my own head. But that also goes back to because I was in my own head when I was a younger child. I was a child that in this day and age, if you would have seen me back then, they would have labeled me autistic.
Really?
I used to sit in the corner of our couch. We had a long couch that was a hook corner, and I would sit there and I would rock. I would rock for hours.
Do you remember why?
Yes, because I would hear voices in my head that would tell me things about wisdom of life. I had those, what I called my secret friends, and Jesus was one of them, Blessed Mother. They were the 2 prominent ones for me because of my Catholicism. This is why it's just like explaining and saying it out loud, and it's now on Facebook. I've shared this privately with people I've trusted on a soul level. So my husband was the first one. And David.
Okay. So if it makes you feel any better, I have a secret that I've not shared. And sorry, my phone there. And my secret is that one night in bed, I was sobbing my eyes out, and 3 angels appeared in my room. And I can totally relate as to why we don't go public with that kind of stuff. But I'm sharing it with you now on this live show so that you don't feel so alone. Further, the way that I saw the 3 of them was pure white. And it was exactly as you described that. If I described them to somebody right now, they would think, well, that sounds like, Casper the Ghost, right? It was pure. All 3 were pure white, 2 at my door, 1 at my bed, at the foot of my bed. And they were made of pure love. If I could explain how I saw them, I can only use those 2 descriptions, white and pure love.
And I'll tell you, think about.
We don't share that kind of stuff because people who haven't experienced it can be very judgmental. And that's just human nature. That's not through anyone's fault. That's just through human nature. So with that being said, what were you going to say?
Oh, it's interesting about the pure white. After going to the seminary and after continuing my understanding. Okay, so after I came out of it, I didn't talk about it, left it alone. It just, as I put it on the shelf. That book was put on the shelf. But as a child, I was always different from my family. I would go and I would sit next to the music. The music would take me onto a different level. I remember growing up as a child, and at sunset, once I experienced it, at sunset, I went out in our backyard. We're up on a hill. I lived in Glen Cove, Long Island. It's a high point. And as the sun would set, the voices would become so clear to me. I could hear them, and they would tell me things. It was Jesus. It was the Blessed Mother. It was a bald man in a robe, which I now can say was a Buddhist monk. And it was, there was there were people that I was a child. I grew up meeting them. They were Indians, but they explained to me that they were Native American elders. They said now I'd never heard that term as a child, and I was Catholic. And even though it was an area where we knew that there were Native tribes that had lived, it was not something discussed in my household because we were a good Catholic family. So these things were in my head, but what they would explain to me are the dynamics of people that were in my life, people that were in drama, in trauma, in their sadness, their jealousies, their inhibitions. I was a child in my head with these voices. So now when this happened and I'm 16, it was just a validation of my relationships already. She came, she showed up. The Blessed Mother showed up for me. I really truly felt honored that she was going to guide me. But you go back into regular life, and then I started to think about it, and I never really talked about it with anybody until my husband, who I'm married to now 35 years last September. I met him, and he was the first.
So he was your boyfriend in the hospital?
He was not. No, he was not the boyfriend in the hospital. I met Marco back in 1981. Okay, yeah, a few years later. And life changes. And Marco was the first one that said to me, Pat, that's a near-death experience. And I was like, near-death? I said, I'd seen something on that once in a movie, but I didn't investigate it because it wasn't important. And also because of actually a message that I gotten from my friends, my spirit friends. They were the ones that told me I had to stop rocking back and forth, and I had to engage in the relationships in my family, because they were looking at me different. I would sit there for hours and just rock and not engage when they would play Monopoly, or they would sit. I would go into the TV and sit next to the sound on the TV, or I would be in my own head.
Okay.
I had a relationship in my own head with what we now term as spirit guides.
And so have you heard them your whole life, or was there any period of time where they disappeared for?
Oh, they will disappear when you become grounded. See, this is what I came to understand after the seminary. That's a mentor of mine suggested that I go to the seminary, and that was back in 1996. And I went to the seminary to have a better, not to become a minister, not to spread it around the world. I wanted to have a better understanding of I crossed. I know I crossed. I don't need to prove it to anybody. I know what my experience was, and it was real, and I know the wisdom that I felt. I know what I felt when I saw this beautiful woman, the Blessed Mother. But if somebody's Jewish, they're not going to see the Blessed Mother. If somebody's Buddhist, they're not going to see the Blessed Mother. They're going to see a form or a special spirit guide that they can relate to for wisdom.
Okay, and so that's important to bring up, is that these experiences transcend all differences in all belief systems. This is not exclusive to being Catholic or any other faith, and yet religion has a lot to say about stuff like this. And, in talking about after-death communication, something that happens for me quite a bit with my daughter.
As well as you know.
Yeah. The first thing people often say, and actually I just presented on this on the Royal Caribbean cruise to a bereavement conference, which was fantastic, just got back last week. And the first thing in my presentation is I address the religious aspect, because people often say that, that is goes against my religion. It's the devil in sheep's clothing. It's evil, soothsayers, what have you. And my personal belief is anything that is comforting does not come from the devil. He does not want us to know comfort. And so that is not, and it is in the Bible.
Yes,
it is.
It absolutely is. I did some research in coming in, because I had heard you mention that from the January one with Dave, that that you were looking for it. So I went and I checked into it, and it's funny because it's in Mark chapter 4, verses 11 through 12. He told them, "The secret of the kingdom of God has been given to you, but to those on the outside, everything is said in parables, so that they may be ever seeing but never perceiving, and ever hearing but never understanding." It's when you have a connection on a spiritual level. Now, I want to go back to the white. Think of spirit. What is spirit? Think of a cheerleader. A cheerleader has spirit. They have lots of energy, right? Yeah. Energy. It's one and the same. It's just a different context. Am I correct?
I believe that as well.
Okay, so now, what is Holy Spirit? Well, What would something holy be? Based in love.
Mm-hmm. And comfort.
Holy Spirit is based in love. So the Holy Spirit is when we are engulfed in an energy of love. Now, science, let's take science into this a little bit because it's interfaith, okay? Science says if you speed up energy, what does it become? Light. A white light.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow. Why didn't I think of that? I'm thinking too literal because our youngest son is a physicist. So I'm thinking, let's see, frequency and vibrancy.
You would say the same thing. When you speed up
simplest terms, yeah,
light. Okay.
Right. And so
now, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have a lot to say on this. That's good.
I've been living it for so long. So you speed up energy, okay? It becomes light. If you speed up light, it becomes matter. Think about that. We are matter.
And emotions are energy, right?
Yes.
Emotions are energy. So when we feel that love, when they exude love, that is their energy.
Yes.
That is their energy. And I have it's no secret that I have a number of after-death communications with my daughter, and it brings me so much comfort. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show tonight, is to talk about this in relation to the other side, and how it can be comforting for people who are missing someone who, a loved one who's lost, who's died. And I hate to say it just like that because it just comes out so.
Can I give you a better? They've crossed over. They've crossed over. The Native Americans call it drop. Or I read this in one of the books by Jamie Sams. The Native Americans call it dropping the robe. The spirit, the energy.
I love that.
Of the person drops the robe. The body being a robe.
Right. And that makes sense to me. I want to share, I have a really cool story for our viewers. And this is from one bereaved mom to another. That's the lost language that I speak, is losing a child. And so my dear friend Loanne Mayer, lovely, lovely lady, she is actually the creator of Celestial Conversations, doing transpersonal journaling with loved ones on the other side. And she's presenting in a few weeks down in California on this. And it's so cool. And she told me the story and gave me permission to share it. And it's a story of a lady, of a bereaved mom who had a near-death experience. And she says, my friend woke up in the morgue with a tag on her toe and a sheet over her head. This is a true story. As she awoke, the person in charge of the morgue came into the room. The person, as the person walked into the room, my friend moved the sheet away from her face. And she saw the poor man who walked into the morgue. She said his face turned white and he ran out of the room. She couldn't figure out what had happened, because she had been to the other side of the veil and she was still immersed in the love of God. Before she knew it, her doctor came in, and after telling the doctor about her near-death experience, he tried to explain that sometimes the brain does funny things. And I know that's what science tries to, how they try to explain NDEs. And the doctor ordered my friend to be sent to a hospital room and her family to be called. Once settled in her room, the priest came in to see her and tried to tell her the exact same thing that the doctor said, that the brain does funny things. And then he left. But in a few minutes, the priest came back and asked her, what was it really like? Now, this conference that my friend was at that met her, she said the woman went on to talk about the death of her son. I asked her how she felt about that in light of her near-death experience. And she looked at me for a couple of minutes and said, I didn't suffer as much as you did because I know where he is. Her smile spoke volumes. And so to me, that is a powerful, powerful story about near-death experiences. And, similar to yours in that, you didn't expect to wake up having been dead, right? And you're in a hospital and you don't want to tell people about it because they're going to say exactly what the priest and the doctor said, that the brain does funny things. But what did they do? So you didn't share it with your medical staff at all?
Nothing. I was 16 years old. I was still trying to get over a major surgery. I had all kinds of problems that went on with it afterward. It was Oh, it was the great, that whole part of it was a great gift for me. And with that understanding, the fact that think about the hearing. I don't hear what's going on around me as much.
Oh.
My connection is on a higher level. I don't care that I missed some things. People said, why don't you get a hearing aid for that ear? I've had 2 surgeries. I'm like, no, because the balance is perfect for me. If I hear too much, I've actually gone through periods of time where I'm so grounded. When I became mom, when I was full-time wife, and everything was about making sure the flowers are right and the laundry is done and dinner is served. The connection wasn't that strong. You understand those roles that we transform throughout our life. The connection wasn't that strong. It was always in the back of my head, certain things that I would see certain friends of my daughter that I'd be like, I know something else is going on. It was always about a wisdom. So I would be able to offer wisdom to my daughter. That's what my connection, that's my ambition with this connection.
So since utilizing this gift that you have and helping other people with it, do you find that there's predatory people who want to take advantage of it, such as, ask your spirits what the winning lotto numbers are?
Well, I've had that question plenty of times. And the thing is, I said, listen, that's not what it's about. Really, we're here for an experience. In every religion, when I was in the seminary, they talked about we are all one. The essence, we are all one, a part of that same energy, God energy. That's what Jesus was teaching when he says his last actions, and I know that you have Catholicism in your background, his last actions were, I want to wash your feet now, because I wanted to be remembered. I was no different than you. My last act was not to be put on a pedestal. It was to be the same as you. And I wash your feet. Being grounded, the feet mean you are grounded. And he had that balance. He walked with wisdom. Those spirits, and since the seminary, I look at it as I want to have a circle of wise spirits around me. And I want to offer wisdom and peace to people. I don't want to be a show person. Oh, yes, I can connect. I don't know if I want to connect. There are parents, when I was at the Angel of Hope, I didn't come out. Those parents didn't know. And because I actually left as the coordinator for the Angel of Hope last year in June. It had gotten overwhelming because I was going from my work, took me from parent, newly bereaved parent, to newly bereaved parent, to newly bereaved parent, to newly bereaved parent. That was my world. There was no more happy path, because with this gift, I'm on 2 planes. When I would stand in front of those 350 people, I was hearing things in my head from these children, from these spirits that wanted certain things to be said to certain people. But yet I can feel and empathize with what you and all of those parents went through. I understand. I truly feel the grief. So much so that weeks, at points there would be 2 or 3 weeks. Actually in December, I was still sick in February from all of the grief that I absorbed and felt. Because each parent will be in the grief of their own experience. I am feeling it for everybody.
So let me ask you, because I know that bereaved parents want to know, is their child okay? And that's not just limited to bereaved parents. People want to know if their loved one on the other side is okay. What can you offer as a blanket statement to anyone with that question?
The blanket statement is base your relationship with them in love. Surround them with love. Under any circumstances that your loved one crossed, whether it be addiction, an accident, cancer, envelop them in love. If you envelop them in fear, it's an energy. That energy, that emotion is going to be in their hearts. and they will be worried. They will feel your fear because it's an exchange of energy. You, in the beginning, think back. Now, I hope you don't mind. Can you tell me when, right after the accident of your daughter, you had a lot of emotions going on, right?
Oh, yeah. Mostly fog and shock. For me, I quite honestly don't remember much of the first 2.5 years. And it would be a number of years after that before I started to feel anything other than profound heartache. And even, and with that heartache, she was still coming to me. She came to me. I saw my grandmother lead her away at the scene of the accident as I sat with her body. With the white sheet over her, I sat there holding her hand, and I saw my grandmother, who I loved, leading my daughter away. And they both looked at me, and Allie looked at me. My daughter looked at me, and I told her it was okay to go. It was okay to go. Did I want her to go? No, but I knew that this was what our path was, because I had had a dream 2 years prior that this was going to happen. And so even in my immense heartache, she still came through to me. And I knew without a shadow of a doubt in my mind, she was not only okay, she was in heaven. She was at peace. Yeah. She was, she was not filled with all the teenage emotions that her 15-year-old body had. Yeah. But at the same time, grief is such a process. So even though I knew my child was not only safe, she was in heaven, it is a process. It's a transition. And we grieve that process because we grieve the past, we grieve the future. It takes a while to adjust to life without that child. And we're human. And so the normal emotions we're going to have is agony, is profound sadness. Yeah. But having said that, knowing that my child, where she is, and that she is more than okay, has brought me tremendous comfort. Yes. And there's nothing special about me. And so my belief is that anybody can get a message or a sign from their loved one. But what I love about near-death experiences is because right now it is given more credit than after-death communication. And are you familiar with Dr. Raymond Moody?
Yes, yes. I read him many years. Yes.
So for our viewers who are not familiar with Dr. Raymond Moody, I want to read a few things. He is a PhD and an MD, and he coined the term near-death experience back in 1975. So just 2 years before you had your experience, Patty, yes. He coined the term NDE in a book called Life After Life. And it's a wonderful book. And yes. He has gone on to write quite a few other books. And he's considered the father of near-death experience, just like Judy and Bill Guggenheim are considered the pioneers of after-death communication, because they're the first ones who really put it out there, right? And so as a medical doctor, Dr. Moody, of course, he knew it could be career stopping. I hate to use the word career suicide because I hate that word suicide. But he knew that his professionalism would be put on the line when he put this out there. But it was so profound for him that he knew he needed to. And so, again, for those who are not familiar with Dr. Moody, after decades of interviewing people who were clinically dead and revived, Dr. Moody believes that the consciousness goes on after it leaves the body, but he's not the only one. Dr. Eben Alexander, a Harvard neurosurgeon who had a near-death experience, wrote about it in Proof of Heaven. And so in an interview, Dr. Moody said, "I don't mind saying that after talking with over 1,000 people who have had these experiences and having experienced many times some of the really baffling and unusual features of these experiences, it has given me great confidence that there is a life after death. As a matter of fact, I must confess to you in all honesty, I have absolutely no doubt on the basis of what my patients have told me that they did get a glimpse of the beyond." And so according to Psychology Today, an article that came out last year, it said that most who have near-death experiences find that the fear of death is gone, and there's an intensified appreciation of life and the importance of love. And that certainly sounds like that's what happened to you, even at age 16.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And it was always about trying to help and be of service to others, because there's such a great feeling, because I'm taking the love that's encompassing in me and trying to share it to others. I will walk away from confrontation. They laugh because, this isn't good. I just turn and walk away, because I know that sometimes the confrontation isn't going to get anywhere. Then there are sometimes you have to stand your ground and you need to say the truth of what the truth is. But there are some situations where it's just I always say you're going to be a hamster on the wheel, keep going around and round and round and round. So with exactly what you said, and Edgar Cayce actually wrote about near-death experiences before Dr. Moody wrote, because he had done so much. Edgar Cayce was talking about it on a different level, because when it had happened to me back in the, let me see, my daughter, I think of everything and what age my daughter was. It was 1988. I had a dear friend who was a mentor of mine, Sandy Paddock, and she was somebody that I talked about, the near-death experience and my belief in that, we just drop the body, that it's the essence of who we are. And Sandy had said to me about Shirley MacLaine and Edgar Cayce, so I got every book that I could get, and that was in our local library on it. Because that's what you did back in the.
That's right.
You went to books. And I started researching, and that's when I had read Raymond Moody stuff. I had looked into it back then, everything that I could find. And the one thing that I came away with is understanding that any time that we lay with our bodies totally still, in the stillness of who you are. And I say this to a lot of people. I say, have you ever had that time when you were a teenager and maybe you were sitting at the beach or you were sitting in the woods? You did not need your body to experience that. It was the essence of your spirit that was experiencing it. For people, I live on the beach, near the beach on Long Island. I say to people my age, I say, remember when we were growing up, you'd be on the beach, laying in the sun, you weren't moving. You could hear what was going on. You could hear the waves, you could hear people walking and running, but you lost the essence of feeling your own body. That feeling of being so relaxed, even if you're laying in bed early in the morning or late at night, where you're not trying to move your body. Think about a person with a disability, that they can't live life through their body. Stephen Hawkins, a perfect example.
Right.
A perfect example. He did not, in his later years, did not live his life through the experience of the body. It was all about his spirit and his connection to the higher intelligence, the higher wisdom. It's a perfect
example. Perfect example. I love that. I love that. So you have gone on and used this pivotal moment in your own life when you were 16, something that you didn't tell anyone about except for your husband. You've gone on now to harness the power of the gift to help people. What is your favorite way of using it to help people?
To give them hope that there's more in their life. When I'm out in the world, and you laugh because I do so many different things. I've worked in nurseries, and I've worked in a nursery once. A woman came in to get flowers, and I knew that she was getting flowers for her sister to plant a garden for her. I'm in the nursery working, and by the end of our 15 minutes together, she was embracing me and crying. The owner looked over, and it's living life with awareness. That's what my goal is, to try to teach everybody. You're doing it. David does it. So many people can do it. So many of those parents that I met when I was working at the Angel of Hope and being the facilitator for them. It was about teaching them, walk with awareness. When you feel something, if you're thinking of your child and a song comes on that radio, and the words speak to your heart. Don't have to go explaining it to everybody and wanting everybody to validate if that was a sign from your child. Own it. Believe in it. Transform the relationship with those that have crossed over. I think that was the one thing that I wanted to say to everybody is your child is in a better place. Any religion will always describe what that better place will be. And if it's describing it from a place of love, it's going to be beautiful. If it's describing it from a place of fear, it's not going to be beautiful. That would be what hell would be. It's fear, living in fear. Many people live on this planet living in fear. But my goal is to teach them that when you live with awareness of love, I had parents whose son, horrible situations. I really can't go into it, but what I tried to explain to her in those first days when she was so heartbroken, I was on the phone with her and I said, tell me your best memory of them when they were 1 through 5. What moment made you smile and fill with love for your child? Go back to the moments of love. Then go from 5 to 10. Think of another moment of love. And every time you think of that moment, why did you choose that moment? Do you think it was your child tapping you on the shoulder and saying, I remember that moment, Mom? It could be. When you go back and you look at that moment over and over again in every part of their life, there are going to be memories filled with lessons and understandings of who you are and who they were evolving to be. Mm-hmm. So my biggest lesson or my biggest hope for parents or for anybody that's lost a child is to transform the relationship.
So let me ask you this. This is a hard question to wrap my brain around, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Someone asked me a while back, why is it that some people seem to suffer so much in life while others skirt by? How knowing what you know about life on the other side of the veil and about love and, you know, your own experience and such, how would you answer that question?
It's very easy. I read it in a book many years ago, and there are 2 basic emotions, fear or love. How do you approach everything in life? Do you approach it from a place of fear or do you approach it from a place of love? Same thing can happen to 2 different people, and based on how they approach their emotions, that's the difference. If anger comes from fear of not being accepted, okay? If you walk into a room and you feel wonderful and you're ready to embrace everybody in that room, it's going to be an experience of love. Love experience. But if you walk in that room fearful, it's not going to happen the same way. Oh, that person didn't talk to me. That person looked at me cross-eyed. Oh, I walked in and I tripped over something and I fell and I broke my ankle. They walked in with apprehension. They didn't walk in embracing love, embracing the experience. It's very simple. That's the basis of everything, fear or love. Those family members that are fearing what's happened to their child, it's a horrible, horrible experience. I experienced grief on one level when we lost a young man at 14. We raised a service dog for him. And we after he got the dog, we took him out into New York City. It was December of 2005. And we had a beautiful day. It was lightly snowing. There were carolers. We went to the body exhibition. He was excited about everything that he saw. It was the most wonderful day. 2 days later, he was 16. He had just turned 16 the month before, had an aneurysm and passed 2 days later.
Oh, my goodness.
He was a friend of my daughter's because she had raised the dog, and he was a normal 15-year-old. He was born with a physical disability. He had no arms, and his legs were differently formed. Bubba Pollock. He was bigger than life. This boy's attitude was failure is not an option. Life is a grand adventure. Yes, my body is different, but I'm going to figure out a way around this. He played basketball. He dribbled the ball. He had friends that he met in a space that we're just different. But we're still here to have an experience.
You think about how he inspired more people than he'll ever know.
He actually does now. He does now. I was blessed.
And heaven he does now.
When he passed, he came to me right away because he knew I could hear him. And we began a whole new relationship. And he kept asking me to go to his family, to be there for him. But I was afraid to come out. I was afraid to tell them that I'm spending nights with your son because they're in deep grief.
Right.
At his mother's feet when she was crying, how could this happen to my beautiful son? Why did God do this to me a second time? My heart was breaking because he was already in my head. You got to tell her I'm okay. But no, I couldn't tell her he was okay. She was in deep grief. She was in pain.
And sometimes, when we're in that deep, dark crevice of agony, of emotional agony, it's hard to hear something like that, because when we're in deep grief, we tend to be very raw, and our brain is in what's called survival brain. And so we don't process things the same way we do under ordinary circumstances. And so your discernment with her was right on. She was, as much as he was in your head telling you, what words of comfort to say to the family, they're not always open to hearing it. Sometimes for a while, sometimes never. The grief journey is so unique. But if someone can open their heart and maybe entertain the idea that there's more than life and death that meets the eye, it can bring tremendous comfort. So thank you, Patty, for joining me tonight and sharing your experiences. They're incredible, and I feel very blessed that you spent your evening with us. How can viewers contact you if they have any questions?
Viewers can contact me a couple of different ways. I am a speaker as part of Aspire Place, so they can go to aspireplace.com, and they can actually see my bio. They can see the information there, or they are very free to email me at 111 Furino, Furino, @gmail.com anytime. And I'd be happy to share or to elaborate on any questions they might have. But the one thing I ask to leave everyone, create a new relationship with your child, with your loved one, no matter who it is. Create and believe and have faith. They will show up in the most incredible ways. It'll be like magic.
Just have your heart open.
Yes.
So, all right. Thank you so much, Patty. You have a blessed, blessed night, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. God bless. Bye now.
All right, everyone. You have a great night, and we'll see you next week. Take care.